Alright, we are recording. College is something we all have a tightly bound relationship with. One of the most defining and important choices that we can make is whether or not to go to college. Whichever decision you make, whichever decision you choose, it will affect you for the rest of your life, for good or for bad. Both choices have their benefits and their hindrances. All throughout high school, I've been constantly worried about college, and really worried about having all this debt afterwards, and it's driven me to work very hard in school and at work. So after one day of exhausting, not very hard work, to be honest, I sat down and asked myself, do I really need to do all this work? Essentially what I was asking myself was, do I want to go to college? Do I really need to do that? And so I finally did some research, and I put together a few of the most influential factors that might affect a high schooler's decision and whether or not to go. I found three major categories. I found that one of the most, that I thought would have large influence in a high schooler's decision: the job that they get afterwards, the amount of debt that they have afterwards, and of course the experience itself. So everybody wants to have money, everyone wants a lot of money, they want to have a good life. There's no denying that. Money dictates what kind of house you live in, what kind of car you drive, the food you eat, what you do for entertainment. Really, how to live your life. Money is very important. You never really have enough money, and if you do want to have more money, a good place to start is hard work. But college definitely opens up a lot of doors and a lot of opportunities. Countless jobs do require a college education, and it's very difficult to land yourself in a good job without a college education. If you do choose to go to college, an important thing to understand is that you might not get a job directly connected to your degree. You hear about how people go to college and they never use their degree again, and to a point this does happen. 17 to 33% of people who get a degree in humanities, biological sciences, math sciences, physical sciences, social sciences, or communication and journalism get a job directly connected to their degree. That's not a huge number. That's not too great. Also, 56 through 60% of people who obtain a degree in business, engineering, or architecture, computer science, or social work will get a job with relevance to their degree. It's a little bit better. And then 74 through 82% of people who get a degree in health or education will find a career directly connected to that degree, that's a fair number. However, it is important to understand that by simply having a college degree, you probably do increase your chances in obtaining a job. This is shown in a survey that I took of adults 25 through 50. Well, I'd say are generally a little bit more well-off. And approximately half of these adults got a job directly connected to their major. That would make sense. That's about half, that's about in the middle of the numbers that I just showed on the screen. And then another quarter said that they probably did get a job directly connected. They got a job. Their degree did probably assist them in obtaining a job in some other way. I think this probably could have been a little bit higher, but this kind of thing is really difficult to judge sometimes, for sure. The next thing to consider, though, is how much money you'll actually be earning, how much more money you'll be earning with a college education. And according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, yes, this is the U.S. government themselves, those over 25 with no high school diploma will, on average, earn approximately $500 a week. Those over 25 who with a high school diploma but no college education will, on average, earn approximately $700 a week. And those over 25 with a bachelor's degree will on average earn approximately $1,200 a week. And finally, those over 25 who had obtained an advanced degree of some kind on average earn approximately $1,500 a month, that's a big difference right there. We do, of course, need to keep in mind that there's a possibility that someone with no college education can get a job much better than someone with an advanced medical degree, however unlikely, but we do need to consider that possibility. As we can plainly see here on the graph, there are some major differences in these categories, specifically between the high school diploma and a bachelor's degree, and that's really important. And those are some big numbers, and they're probably a little bit larger than we might expect. At least they were a lot larger than I would expect. It's good to understand how much an education will probably help you in your decision in going to college. So we all want a job, we all want to go to college. All want to get a good job. We want to earn lots of money and have a good rest of our lives, a good stressless rest of our lives. But this is a little bit difficult, especially because of debt. Debt is one of the largest, most important factors in deciding. I would say it is the most important factor in deciding, or in a high schooler's decision in deciding whether or not to go to college. Debt is scary. It's very dangerous. It grows, overwhelms, and consumes us. Going to college can generate quite a lot of debt, so we really need to be careful when deciding to go to college. It's a good idea to start saving for college. If you do plan to go to college, it's a good idea to start saving as much as possible, as soon as possible. In a survey I took of students who were, I'd say, generally more well off, about 44% said that they were not saving for college, and this kind of startled me, as in the exact same survey, about half of the students said that they expected some college debt, and another 30% said that they expected a lot of college debt. So that's 80% of students expected to have debt, and only 50% of them or so were actually saving for college. If you do expect to have, if you do want to have a low amount of debt, or none at all, then you need to start saving as soon as possible and as much as possible. And also, it's important to know how much you're probably going to be borrowing. So the typical borrower, which this is probably going to be you're probably going to be borrowing money for college. So out of the typical, out of all those who borrow money, 1 in 10 owe at least $150,000 in debt, which that is a lot of money. You can buy a house with that amount of money. 1 in 4 owe almost $100,000, and the typical borrower, now please note this is probably going to be you. You are probably going to borrow some money. The typical borrower owes approximately $58,000. That's a lot of money. And with numbers like these, we have to assume that this is going to be us. We need to prepare for this. If you assume that you're going to get that really good scholarship, and you do not, most of the rest of your life is probably going to be considerably more difficult. But we can't assume that we're going to get an amazing scholarship, because if we don't get that and we don't have a backup plan, that could pose some serious issues, especially for debt in the future. So debt is a terrible thing. Work as hard as you can, and don't get as little debt as possible. Now, on a little bit more of a lighter note, I'm going to talk a little bit about the actual experience itself in college. Nobody wants a crappy desk job. We don't want to owe college anything, or anybody anything for that matter. But what about the actual experience in college that we're going to have? And you hear all sorts of people talk about how college was the greatest time of my life or whatever. But funnily enough, you'll rarely ever hear people actually talk about the education itself and what they learned. So I realized this, and I decided to do a little bit more research. And I found that in 2009, 75% of students thought that being well off was an important goal, while only 40% of those surveyed said that developing their intelligence was important. And this has nearly flipped since 1968. Kind of seems like college has become a little bit of an investment, doesn't it? 45% of students in another study had not developed their critical thinking skills within the first 2 years of their time at college, which is a little bit disconcerting. It just kind of goes to show how little people are starting to care about college, and how much they're really starting to care about their finances instead. If you do plan to go to college for the education, by all means do it. You can learn a lot of great things, a lot easier than on Google through college for sure. But just don't be surprised if it's not the experience you're looking for. A lot of people are really stressed in college. You have a lot more responsibilities. And one survey, found that only half of college students would consider themselves among the top emotionally healthy of their class. And that's not particularly a happy thought, is it? So 50% of students would not consider themselves joyful, relaxed, or content, and would rather consider themselves agitated or stressed or depressed. So is the college experience really all that good? Well, according to the survey of those adults that I surveyed that are 25 through 50 years old, that are typically more well off, yes, it was. 60% said that they enjoyed their college experience or it was the best time of their life. 30% were indifferent, and only 10% were unhappy with their time at college. You might be stressed throughout your time in college. You might come out as a better, more mature person afterwards. College is important. College is an important defining season of one's life, and the choice of whether or not to go is very important. You could end up with a better job because of it, or not. You could end up with a huge heap of debt because of it, or not. You could enjoy your time at college, learning, growing, changing, or you could not. You can either go or you cannot go. It is that simple. And now that you know a little bit more about what you're doing, it's your decision to make. Thank you.